Hi, welcome to the Parenting with Confidence podcast. I am your host, Teresa Alexander Inman, board certified behavior analyst and infant toddler developmental specialist. Today, I am super excited to have Tom Cronin join us. Now, Tom spent 26 years in finance markets as one of Australia's leading bond and swap brokers. He discovered meditation in the early stages of his career when the anxiety and chaos he was experiencing had hit a crisis point, and it completely transformed his world, both personally and professionally. He is the founder of the Stillness Project, a global movement to inspire 1 billion people to sit in silence daily. Welcome, 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 Tom.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me along today.
Oh, wow. Thank you for saying yes. Now, Tom, sitting inside, how can a parent sit in silence? I mean, they've got 3 children, maybe 4, and you're asking them to sit in silence.
Yeah, it's a really good question, isn't it? I mean, I've got twins. My two children are 20 now, so I've been through all the stages of childhood raising. And what was really critical for us was the state we were in whilst we were parenting. And it's the classic analogy of when they recommend when if the plane's in trouble and they drop the face masks, that we put them on ourselves first because we're more capable of helping someone else if we're in a good place. And I really think parenting is all about that. I was actually doing a talk yesterday at a conference, and someone in the question time asked, why aren't I doing more work with children, or what work can we do with children? I said, look, the problem is at the moment is that we just have too many stressed parents. We have too many parents with addictions, too many parents that are angry, too many parents with anxiety, too many parents with depression. And the children, they grow through osmosis. And at the moment, they don't really have a very solid, good roadmap or North Star to guide them on how to be a child because the parents aren't leading them into that direction. How many broken relationships do we have? How much domestic violence do we have? And so my primary focus is that we must, as parents, really set a foundation of what it is to be a good human being. And part of that comes from withdrawing from the stimulus of life, withdrawing from this addiction to experiencing and acquiring things, but to just sit with our own presence and connect with our own heart and soul. And from that place, we can be a really good parent. But it's very hard to be a really good parent if we haven't made that connection first. And so it's about, and it's difficult when you've got little toddlers and 5 kids, 3 kids, 4 kids, finding a way to either, if you've got 2 parents in the family, to tag team and they, give yourself shifts, or, have a carer or someone, just try to find ways to make it work that you can take some time out, because if you don't nourish yourself, it's very hard to nourish your children.
It is. And it's crazy because I started this podcast thinking I'm going to tell parents all about, early childhood development and all of this stuff. And I've fallen into, okay, self-care for parents first, because I can't tell you what to do with your child if you haven't done it with yourself first. And I still find myself in that place because of the fact that it's so important for us to first, heal thyself
Yeah.
before we can parent effectively and parent with confidence. So, people are probably wondering, why are you always doing this? You should be talking to, telling us what to do with our kids. Well, I need to tell you what to do with yourself first. So that's why Tom is here.
Yeah, thank you.
You are very welcome. Okay, so in the stillness, what are we getting out of that stillness?
That's a great question. Not many people ask that. It's really a very poignant question, because a lot of people are very obsessed about their meditation and getting into a state of no thought. And I ask them, why do you want to get into stillness? And they're like, I don't know. Isn't it what I'm supposed to do? Isn't it good for me? I say, why is it good for you? I say, I don't know. I was just being told that I should do that. So getting some understanding around that state. First, we want to look at what stillness is, and it's very difficult with meditation to get into stillness. Firstly, let's just put that out there, that a lot of people get very frustrated with their meditations if they don't get stillness. And the reason why it's very difficult to get stillness, firstly, because our mind has become very, very stimulated with the life that we're living. We produce, we analyze, we digest a lot of information on a daily basis, more than we've ever done as a species. So our mind is like a mouse on a treadmill that's been moving very fast all day. And so to close your eyes and try and tell your mind to not think is almost impossible to do, and you probably won't get anywhere with that.
Right.
Secondly, if we do manage to get into those deep states of transcendence, that's when the mind goes into a very deep, restful state. We call it samadhi in Sanskrit. Sama is where we get the word same, and dhi, samadhi, means intellect. So the same intellect means it's not moving, the mind is the same. And when we get into deep samadhi, what happens is it puts the body into a very deep physiological rest. And when the body goes into this very deep physiological rest, it starts to unravel and release stresses. And that's going to bump us out of stillness. So stillness, we can go into it, but we'll get bumped out of it. And there's a couple of benefits that come out of stillness. Firstly, when we get into those deep states of meditation, that is stillness, we start clearing a lot of stresses out of the body. The body is a warehouse of stress, fatigue and sadness and rage and guilt and fear. All these things are trapped energetically in the body, and the body starts clearing these anomalies out of the system. So that's the first thing, is that we start to purify and cleanse the physical form of stresses. And the second thing is we expand our mind. Most of us think with patterns of thought. We get coded through genetics. So we arrive on this planet coming out of our mother's womb with a particular software blueprint that has been passed down to us from generations. And that's a way of thinking that we don't even get to decide. It's just in your brain, and you have a particular personality trait that is coded into you through your genetics. And then what happens is we get conditioned through our society, the upbringing, the school we went to, the suburb we lived in, all of that starts to indoctrinate our brain. And so we have this very sort of habituated way of thinking in the world. And when we go into that deep conscious awareness in meditation, what happens is we free ourselves of that indoctrination, and we start to operate from a conscious mind rather than the thinking mind. And when we have the conscious mind starting to observe the thinking mind, we can start to then recorrect, or we might even use the word reprogram, that thinking mind to start operating in a very different way, a way that serves us in a better way.
Wow. Thank you. And what is that process though? So like we sit in stillness. So because I know for me, when I try to sit in stillness, all the things. So all of a sudden I get an itch on my cheek. And then I start thinking about, oh man, I can't believe I responded that way to this person. Or why didn't I say this? Or why didn't I do that? Is there a way to calm all that? Like, do you have any tips to calm all that? Or your child is screaming in the next room because, you've got somebody caring for them, or your spouse is caring for them, and you just wanted this moment, and then all of this happens.
Yeah, look, definitely just trying to sit and empty the mind is almost impossible, like I said. So,
Yeah.
usually what we recommend is using a mechanism, a device, or a process. So, the one that I teach predominantly is using a mantra or a sound that we repeat. And the beautiful thing about this sound is that it moves the mind inward, away from external stimulation. And it has this luring effect on the brain, and it sort of calls the brain deeper and deeper and deeper away from the external world of stimulation, because everything you just said then about what your mind's thinking is outside of you, your
Right.
kids, and what you said to someone. They're events that your mind moves externally into the outside world. And what the mantra does is moves the mind inward to the inside world. That's the world of silence and stillness. So using a mantra is a very effective one. And I teach that in weekend workshops. And if the best way to learn that technique is actually Googling in your local area Vedic meditation or transcendental meditation,
Mhm.
and trying to find a teacher that will teach you in a live in-person course. That's how I predominantly teach this in Australia. There's other ways you can learn this online, and we've got an online course if people wanted to learn it through my online course. And so that's one way. The other way is just to simply focus on the breath. So stop trying to empty the mind, but bring the mind into one focus, and that's the breath moving through the nostrils. And so that way, when we just focus on that single point, we'll have greater calmness and clarity. But it's a lot easier to either have the sound as the mantra or the focal point of the breath moving through the nostrils, as opposed to just trying to sit there and empty the mind.
Yeah, because like you said, it's impossible. I've tried it, and It's just more frustrating. And people who have recommended it's like, oh, try meditation. Well, I keep thinking about all these things. So thank you for that. So mantras, yes. That's awesome. And the breath thing, because I think I did a meditation one time, and they're like, focus on the temperature of the breath going into your nostrils and the temperature of the breath coming out of your nostrils. And I was just like, because then it gives you something to focus on
Yeah.
that's not what's in your head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Awesome. Nice. So you talk about overcoming anxiety, depression, and insomnia naturally. And like I said before we started, that I know a lot of parents are, battling these things. They are, these are challenges in their lives. I know for me, I go, every so often I have, some insomnia because of something that's going on in my life. And it's just like, I can't sleep. Not like I can fix it if I don't sleep, but, what are some ways that we can overcome these challenges?
Yeah, when we look at what anxiety and depression and insomnia are, they're predominantly biochemical imbalances. And the reason why we have that biochemical imbalance, so insomnia is a lack of melatonin, depression is a lack of serotonin and oxytocin, anxiety is, as well as a lack of serotonin and oxytocin. So these are biochemicals that should naturally flow into our bloodstream given the appropriate environment, which is usually a relaxed, calming environment. So if you go on holidays and you're sitting on the beach in Florida or Bahamas or Mexico, Cancun or somewhere, why we get on a plane and why we spend lots of money and sit on that deck chair is really got nothing to do with the location. It's got to do with what biochemicals that location triggers in a release into our bloodstream. We actually go there to feel good. Okay, and so that's why we'll travel across the world, is so that we have better biochemicals in our bloodstream. And that's why we eat ice cream. It's why we listen to Spotify. It's why we go to the movies, because we want to shift the sensations in our body, and all sensations are a result of biochemicals in our bloodstream. And so what's happening in our world is that we have a lot of people in the sympathetic nervous system state, which is a stress response. We're busy, we're tired, we're running around quickly, we've got a lot of demands on our plate, and it's deteriorating our state from the parasympathetic, the relaxed state, to the sympathetic nervous system. And what's happening there is that we're producing lots of cortisol, adrenaline, and norepinephrine, and we're not producing melatonin, serotonin, and oxytocin. And it's simply a state that we've switched out of from parasympathetic into the sympathetic. And what that does is that it deteriorates our ability to actually feel good, simply because we don't have the biochemicals. Now, one of the things we can do without having to go to Cancun or Bahamas is actually just close our eyes and learn a technique of meditation. And meditation is one of the most effective ways to get us into that state.
So you can, oh, sorry, he's mostly so quiet. Um, and thank you. So that's a free way or less expensive way to get that same effect, which is amazing because, of
Yeah, you know
course,
what?
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we could do that every day. This is the beautiful thing. If you look at a meditator's biochemical makeup, you'll find that they have higher levels of oxytocin, serotonin, and melatonin in their bloodstream. And it's been scientifically proven that meditation can increase your serotonin, melatonin, and oxytocin. And so we find ourselves just naturally, through this daily regulated process, feeling happier and healthier. And it removes that incessant need to have to get on a plane and spend $3,000 to go to another location just so we can have better biochemicals in our bloodstream.
Temporarily.
That's temporarily, exactly.
Right? Yeah, how long does that effect last?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had a woman who was a lawyer, and she was interested in learning meditation with me. And it's it's not cheap, but it's not expensive. People do have to pay to learn because they're using up my time on the weekends, and I'm committing to helping them with the meditation technique. But she was balking at the idea of how having to pay money for this experience. And I said, okay, well, look, let's just explore your last holiday. Where did you go? And this was in Sydney, Australia. And she said, I went to Paris. I said, okay, so when did you go to Paris? She goes, oh, 9 months ago for a holiday. I said, how long were you in Paris? She said, 3 weeks. I said, how much did the holiday cost you? She said, $9,000. I said, okay, cool. So you spent $9,000 9 months ago in Paris for 3 weeks. And today you had a stressful day, which is why she was talking to me. And you're not feeling very good. How much of that investment of that $9,000 9 months ago is supporting you and helping your day to day to feel better? And of course, she just, realized that it didn't contribute in any way, shape, and form because it's not enhancing her biochemical makeup today. It just did for 3 weeks and then it was over.
Sorry, they're still barking. Goodness. Yeah, and exactly that's it. I mean, the cost benefit ratio.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
amazing. Yeah, but we look in the moment, it's like, oh, why should I pay you when I can go to Paris? But then, yeah. So hopefully she, is finding more peace now on a regular basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Uh, yeah, there must be something out there. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, sorry about that.
It's okay, no problem at
Yeah.
all. I've got a dog as well.
Another
I'll put him
thing,
in another room.
pardon, sorry.
I've got a dog as well, but I definitely have to put him in another room and I'm on a podcast because he
Uh,
he will
and
bark.
usually that's what I do, and well, actually, I shouldn't say that because often they just lay here quietly and don't bother, and it's rare that I have to put them out. But today I'm wondering if that was what, I should have made a different decision today.
It's all good.
Uh,
It makes it raw and human.
yes. Yeah, exactly. And you know what? Life happens, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Uh, was that you?
Yeah, I think there's some we got some noise going on both sides of the
Okay.
planet, right? We've got some traffic happening outside.
Yeah,
Someone's looking go
yeah,
on.
that's right. Just more life happening. Makes it more
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
It's not like a sanitized studio where all of this takes place.
yeah. It's nice and raw.
Exactly. Now, we also talked about intuition. And I'll just tell you when it comes to intuition, what I believe on the as it relates to parenting. Is I think of intuition as that gut feeling. And I usually tell parents that is your guide as to what to do, like how, for your child, right? Because, we always have a gut feeling about something. And often when we go against that feeling, things don't always work out the way it should. I had a parent who I had a gut feeling that, my child wasn't developing as they should have. They weren't
Yeah.
meeting developmental milestones. And my doctor kept saying, oh, no, he's fine. And then 2 years down the line, we find out, oh, mom's gut feeling was right. Is that intuition or is that something else?
It's such a good question. You asked some really good questions. To be honest with you, I don't really know. I don't really know. There's this incredible thing that I don't think we've really fully understood it or really explored it properly. Is this deep sense of knowingness about certain things? I believe as humans we have a lot more to explore in our capacity. I think the current model and version of human is very, very almost primal. We're still not that far developed from just a few thousand years ago. I think the next version of human that's coming through now, which we're in the process of becoming right now, is developing these very intuitive, intelligent, wise capabilities that we have within us that transcend the world of physical form, and we start to access another field of intelligence. So I think we're seeing a lot more people with mediumship capabilities, clairvoyance capabilities, psychic capabilities. These are really big things that are starting to open up on the planet now, and I think we're going to start to develop more and more of that capacity to tune into things like time and things like connection to other humans, tuning into what people are thinking about, tuning into what's going on in a person. Like, there's these intuitive medical people that can tune into the body and detect sicknesses without a doctor. So I think we're going to start to see a lot more of these. I don't understand them fully myself, but I know that there's these capabilities that we're going to start having more and more of them as time goes on.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just wondering because I just like I I don't know, and I think too maybe it's because we were once connected physically to our child, and maybe
Mm,
that's why we have these feelings. I don't know, but I was just wondering because I'm still not clear on intuition and how all of that works. So it's just a thought.
mm.
So Tom, before we sign off, if there was one thing you wanted our audience to leave here with, what would it be?
I think in a time of uncertainty that we have, a lot of stress, a lot of worry, a lot of people unsure about what's going on, feeling depressed, anxious, overwhelmed. And I think we've got some challenging times ahead as well. I want to share with people that regardless of what's going on in our outside world, there's a place within us that we can connect deeper with that allows us to be in the world and less affected by it. Usually, and we're deeply coded with this idea that good things happen and we feel good, bad things happen and we feel bad. And our entire society is sort of built on that framework. But it doesn't have to be that way. Good things can happen and we can still feel okay. Bad things can happen and we can still feel okay. So we've got a place within us, and that comes through this meditation. And if we think of the word enlightenment, it's the ability to have this equanimity through these times of change. And when we connect to that deeper part of ourselves, it frees us from the need for life to have to work out to feel good. And that's a complete shift. When we actually feel good, regardless of whether life's working out for us, it gives us sovereignty, it gives us empowerment, and allows us to carve a way forward for our path without all of this trying so hard to make things work out for us, because sometimes they're not going to work out for us.
So, so true. And, I was just telling one of our granddaughters earlier today that, I'm almost 60 and I'm just learning all of this stuff. And it's truly amazing. We're never too old to learn. So start now. And, on that path to enlightenment, because it's really important. It makes a big difference in how we show up for ourselves and for our children and our families.
Yeah.
So,
And this is early days where these ancient spiritual practices and understandings are starting to make their way into the mainstream. And so it's one or two generations away before people just live and breathe this as normality. And the fact that you're passing that on to your granddaughter means that that granddaughter at a very young age will be exposed to this information. We had to wait till we're 30, 40, 50, 60,
yes.
but kids are getting exposed to it through the parents. And this is why we come back to the very starting point of this podcast, is that if parents can make sure that they integrate, embrace, and embody some of these practices and ways of living and the philosophies of them, then it really helps the children come through with a normalization of that way of living. And so that's how we're going to make a big difference in the world just within one generation.
Absolutely, because we've normalized yelling and negativity and all these other
Absolutely.
things. So let's, flip that switch and live more wholly, more fully, and calmer.
Mm,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm all in for that.
Yes, me too. So, Tom, how can people get hold of you?
Well, they can find me primarily at Instagram. It's where I like to sort of be most of my time. So if anyone wants to reach out, they can just send me a message. And if they wanted to say hi, more than happy to respond to them in a message in Instagram, or follow me there at Tom Cronin, TomCronin. And otherwise, they can go to my website, tomcronin.com.
Awesome. And you mentioned a free gift for our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a book which is a guide to finding a calm life. And it's a sort of step by step guide on how to reduce anxiety, panic, and depression in your life. So there'll be a link where people can just click on that and they can get the free book.
Yay. And people, please do it. Your life depends on it. Your sanity, your children's you know, um, well-being depends on it. Awesome.
Mm.
And before we sign off, just tell us, you mentioned the movie and just tell us a little bit about it, what the title is and how we can find it.
Yeah, there's a film and a book I produced called The Portal, and it's exploring the portal being meditation, and explores six lives that have all gone through very challenging times, crisis. And we filmed these six real life stories around the world. And they used meditation and mindfulness as a method to get through their crisis and to transform their lives. And it's a really beautiful poignant film. Many people cry in it. So they can find that at the website entertheportal.com, just ENTER, and then theportal.com.
Right. It sounds a little ominous, entertheportal.com. But ominous good, I'm just saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Tom, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being here and sharing this important message with us because, parents, it all begins with us. We
Mm,
set the
mm.
stage for our children, for their well being and their future. Because what I've learned too recently, a lot of what you're talking about helps actually decrease the effects of trauma. So, and we've all been through trauma, and our children, Lord knows, they've undergone trauma that they may not even understand. So, if we get ourselves in that state, that could potentially reduce the effects of trauma. Yes?
Absolutely, 100%.
Wonderful. All right. Thanks again, Tom. Be
Pleasure. It's great to be
well.
here. Thanks for the
Nice
invitation.
meeting you
Have a
as
great
well.
evening.
You're welcome. And thank you for saying yes. Okay. Take care. Thanks.
Bye now.
Bye.